My name is Margaret, and at 32 years old, I never expected to be in this situation. When I inherited my grandparents' house, I thought it would be the foundation for my future with my fiancé, Derek. Then my sister Alexis asked to move in temporarily during hard times. Everything changed the night she announced she was pregnant with Derek's baby and demanded my master bedroom. Her smug smile disappeared instantly when I calmly said, "Honey, I own this house." Before I get into this wild story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And be sure to hit like and subscribe so you do not miss what happens next in this absolute show. Growing up with Alexis, who is 3 years younger than me, was always a challenge. From the moment she could walk and talk, there was this competitive dynamic between us that never quite faded. While some sibling rivalry is normal, Alexis took it to another level. She was not just competitive, she was jealous of anything I had. If I got a new toy for my birthday, she would cry until my parents bought her something similar or even better. When I made the cheerleading squad in high school, she suddenly developed an interest in cheerleading and made it her mission to join too. Our parents, bless their hearts, did not help the situation. Being the youngest and more dramatic of the two of us, Alexis quickly learned how to manipulate them. She mastered the art of tears and tantrums to get her way. I still remember when I saved up for 6 months to buy a beautiful blue dress for junior prom, only to find Alexis wearing it to a school dance the week before my prom. When I confronted her, she claimed she just wanted to borrow it and had somehow convinced our parents it was okay without asking me. My dress returned with a stain that never quite came out. I became the responsible one by default. While Alexis got away with breaking curfew and mediocre grades, I was held to a higher standard. "You are the older sister. You should know better." That became the constant refrain in our household. I learned early on that life was not always fair, especially in families with complicated dynamics. My saving grace during those years was my relationship with my grandparents. Every weekend, I would escape to their house, a beautiful 2-story colonial that had been in the family for generations. My grandfather, a retired woodworker, taught me how to fix things around the house, while my grandmother shared her love of gardening and cooking. Their home became my sanctuary, a place where I was valued for being exactly who I was. As they aged, our roles gradually reversed. During my college years at the local university, I would visit them 3 times a week to help with groceries, doctor appointments, and household chores. When my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I adjusted my class schedule to spend more time with him. After graduation, I found a job nearby as a financial analyst specifically, so I could continue supporting them. In their final years, I was there almost daily. Alexis visited occasionally, usually when she needed money or had nowhere else to go after another relationship imploded. My grandparents noticed the difference in our dedication. When they passed away within months of each other, 5 years ago, their will reflected that observation. While they left some financial assets to be split between Alexis and me, they specifically left the house to me, noting it was in recognition of Margaret's unwavering care and support. The house meant everything to me. Every corner held memories of holiday gatherings, life lessons, and unconditional love. When my parents suggested selling it and splitting the proceeds to be fair to both girls, I refused. Instead, I took out a loan to buy their portion of the inheritance, making the house entirely mine. Over the next few years, I poured my heart into renovating it, preserving its character while making it my own. My career as a financial analyst at Westfield and Associates was thriving. I had built a reputation for thoroughness and integrity, earning the respect of clients and colleagues alike. The stability of my professional life contrasted sharply with Alexis's constant job hopping and financial crises. Despite our differences, I maintained a cordial relationship with my sister, helping her out financially when needed, but keeping healthy boundaries. My social circle was small but solid. My best friend Tiffany had been by my side since high school. Unlike the fair-weather friends who disappeared when things got tough, Tiffany had helped me through the grief of losing my grandparents and celebrated my successes without jealousy. We had a standing Sunday brunch date where we would catch up on our weeks and support each other through life's challenges. It was at a mutual friend's wedding 3 years ago that I met Derek. He was the best man, and I was a bridesmaid. We bonded over our shared embarrassment at the choreographed dance the wedding party had to perform. By the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers, and he called the very next day to ask me out. Derek was an architect with a passion for historical preservation, which made him appreciate my grandparents' house immediately. Our relationship blossomed naturally as we discovered our complementary skills and interests. He had the vision for structural improvements, while I had learned enough from my grandfather to handle many repairs myself. Weekends became renovation projects, followed by cozy dinners in our increasingly beautiful home. 6 months ago, Derek proposed in the garden my grandmother had lovingly tended for decades. He had secretly restored the old gazebo and filled it with fairy lights. The moment was perfect, and I said yes without hesitation. We began planning a future together, discussing children and growing old in the house that already held so many generations of love. Throughout all this, Alexis continued her pattern of dramatic relationships and financial instability. She would call occasionally, usually when things were falling apart. Most recently, she had been living with a boyfriend named Tyler in an apartment they could barely afford. I had loaned her money twice for rent in the past year with vague promises of repayment that never materialized. Then came the tearful phone call that would change everything. Alexis was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. The story came out in fragments. Tyler had cheated. They had broken up. She could not afford the apartment alone. The landlord was evicting her. She had nowhere to go. "Just until I get back on my feet," she pleaded. "I promise it will only be for a month or two." I hesitated. Given our history, inviting Alexis into my home felt like inviting chaos into my carefully constructed peace. But she was still my sister, and the thought of her being homeless weighed heavily on my conscience. When I discussed it with Derek, he encouraged me to help her. "Family is important," he said, "and it is only temporary. We have plenty of space." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I cleared out the guest room and made space in the shared areas of the house. Before Alexis arrived, I sat down with her and laid out clear expectations. She would actively look for work and a new apartment, contribute to household chores, and respect our space and privacy. The arrangement would be for 2 months maximum. Alexis nodded eagerly, promising to be the perfect house guest and expressing profound gratitude for my generosity. Looking back, I should have trusted my instincts. The red flags were there from the beginning, but I ignored them in the name of family loyalty. That decision would soon test the foundations of everything I had built. The changes in our household were subtle at first. Within the first week, Alexis had somehow taken over the living room, spreading her belongings across the coffee table and couch, as if marking her territory. What started as a few magazines and a laptop gradually expanded to include makeup, clothing items, and various personal effects. The guest room seemed to be used only for sleeping, while the common areas became her domain. Despite her promises, Alexis showed no signs of actively job hunting. When I would ask about her progress, she always had a ready excuse. "The job market is terrible. My field is competitive. I need to update my resume first. I'm waiting to hear back from applications." Each explanation seemed reasonable in isolation, but the pattern became clear over time. Each explanation seemed reasonable in isolation, but the pattern became clear over time. What bothered me more than her lack of effort to find employment was the way she acted around Derek. When I was in the room, she was cordial but distant with him. However, I occasionally caught glimpses of a different dynamic when they thought I was not paying attention. A touch on the arm that lingered too long, a private joke shared in hushed tones, subtle flirting that could be denied if confronted. "Have you looked at any apartments yet?" I asked one evening during dinner, 3 weeks into her stay. "The rental market is crazy right now," Alexis sighed dramatically. "Everything decent is way out of my price range, especially without a steady job, but I have a few leads I am following up on." Derek jumped in before I could respond. "No rush, right? Better to find something that works than rush into another bad situation." The look they exchanged made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. Surely I was being paranoid. Derek had never given me reason to doubt his loyalty before. As days turned into weeks, the tension in the house grew. Alexis contributed nothing to household expenses and only helped with chores when explicitly asked. Even then, her efforts were half-hearted at best. The dishwasher would be loaded incorrectly. Laundry left in the machine until it soured. Surfaces wiped, but not actually cleaned. When I finally confronted her about her lack of contribution, her eyes welled with tears. "I am trying my best, Margaret. Do you think I enjoy being dependent on my big sister? Do you think this is easy for me? I lost my boyfriend, my home, and my dignity all at once. I am doing everything I can to get back on my feet." Her performance was convincing enough that I found myself apologizing for expecting more. This pattern repeated itself. Reasonable expectations met with emotional manipulation, followed by my retreat to keep the peace. Derek often sided with Alexis in these situations, suggesting I was being too hard on her. The uncomfortable moments continued to accumulate. I would walk into rooms where Derek and Alexis were talking only to have their conversation stop abruptly. My sister began wearing increasingly revealing outfits around the house, particularly when Derek was home. One morning, I found her making breakfast in one of my old university t-shirts and nothing else, claiming all her clothes were in the laundry. When I tried to discuss my concerns with Derek, he became defensive. "You are overreacting," he insisted. "She is your sister, for God's sake. She is going through a rough time and needs support, not suspicion." "I cannot believe you would think either of us would do anything inappropriate." His indignation made me question my own perceptions. Was I being unreasonable? Was jealousy clouding my judgment? I had never been the jealous type in our relationship, but something about this situation felt different. Then came the incident that confirmed my instincts were right. I had been working late on a major project, the kind that could lead to a promotion if executed well. It was nearly 11 p.m. when I finally finished and drove home, exhausted but satisfied with my work. The house was mostly dark when I arrived, with just the soft glow of the living room lamps visible through the windows. As I approached the front door, I heard laughter from inside. Opening the door quietly, I stepped into the entryway and froze at the sight before me. Derek and Alexis were sitting close together on the couch, a bottle of wine open on the coffee table between them. Not just any wine, but the expensive Cabernet I had been saving for our anniversary. Their bodies were angled toward each other, heads bent in intimate conversation. As the door closed behind me, they sprang apart like guilty teenagers, their startled expressions telling me everything I needed to know. "Margaret, you are home early," Alexis exclaimed, though it was well past the time I usually returned. "We were just having a glass of wine and catching up," Derek added quickly. "You have been working so much lately, and we were just keeping each other company." I nodded slowly, too tired and shocked to confront them in that moment. "I see you found the silver oak," I said, quietly gesturing to the wine bottle. "I was saving that for our anniversary next month." The flash of guilt across Derek's face was brief, but unmistakable. "I did not realize. I am sorry, babe. I will replace it." That night, after Alexis had retreated to the guest room, I confronted Derek. "What is going on between you two?" I asked directly. "And do not tell me nothing, because I am not blind." His defensive reaction was immediate and forceful. "Nothing is going on. I cannot believe you would even suggest that. She is your sister, and I am your fiancé. We were just talking, that is all." "People who are just talking do not jump apart, guilty, when someone walks in the room," I pointed out. "We were startled because we did not hear you come in," he insisted. "You are being paranoid, Margaret. I love you. I asked you to marry me, remember? Why would I risk that for anyone, let alone your sister?" His logic seemed sound, and his reassurances were what I wanted to hear, yet something felt hollow about his words, a rehearsed quality that left me unconvinced. We went to bed that night with the issue unresolved, the first time in our relationship we had gone to sleep angry with each other. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction I had witnessed between Derek and Alexis over the past weeks, the lingering glances, the inside jokes, the sudden silences when I entered a room. Individually, each incident could be explained away. Collectively, they painted a concerning picture. But what was really happening? Was it one-sided attraction from Alexis with Derek oblivious or merely being polite? Was it mutual flirtation that would never cross any serious lines? Or was something more happening behind my back? I thought of my sister's history of taking what was mine, from toys to clothes to attention. I thought of Derek's recent emotional distance, the way he had been working late more often, the decreased physical intimacy between us. I could not shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I also could not bring myself to believe the worst without concrete evidence. By morning, I had decided to give them both the benefit of the doubt, but to watch more closely. Perhaps the stress of work and the changed dynamic at home were making me see problems that did not exist, or perhaps my intuition was trying to warn me of danger ahead. Either way, I needed to know the truth. Alexis's territorial behavior became more pronounced in the following weeks. I came home one day to find she had rearranged the living room furniture to create better flow, as she put it. My favorite reading chair now sat at an awkward angle, replaced in the prime spot by a chaise lounge she had brought from her old apartment. The family photos on the mantel had been rearranged too, with several of my pictures with Derek moved to the back row, while photos of Alexis took center stage. My possessions began to disappear and reappear in unexpected places. My favorite sweater would vanish from my closet, only to turn up days later in the laundry hamper, stretched and smelling of unfamiliar perfume. The expensive face cream I kept in the bathroom cabinet would be mysteriously depleted, with Alexis claiming ignorance when confronted. "Maybe you use more than you remember," she would suggest with a shrug, as if my memory was the problem. The kitchen became another battleground. Though I had always done most of the cooking in the house, Alexis suddenly developed an interest in preparing elaborate meals. Whenever Derek was home, she would spend hours creating his favorite dishes I had mentioned to her in passing conversations. "This beef bourguignon is amazing," Derek exclaimed one night as Alexis beamed at the compliment. "It is nothing, really, just something I threw together," she replied modestly, though I had seen her following a detailed recipe I had bookmarked in my cookbook. "Margaret never makes this," Derek added, oblivious to how his words stung. "Well, not everyone has the patience for proper cooking," Alexis replied, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Some people are just too busy with their important jobs to care about the little things that make a house a home." The subtle dig was not lost on me, but confronting her would only make me look petty. Instead, I swallowed my frustration along with the meal she had prepared in my kitchen with my ingredients for my fiancé. I needed perspective, so I arranged to meet Tiffany for coffee that Saturday morning. Derek was at a work event, and Alexis was still sleeping when I left the house. "She is doing what?" Tiffany exclaimed when I described the situation. "And you are letting her get away with it?" "I do not know what to do," I admitted. "Every time I try to set boundaries, she makes me feel like I am being cruel or unreasonable, and Derek seems to be taking her side more often than not." Tiffany frowned, stirring her latte thoughtfully. "That is concerning, very concerning. Have you considered that there might be something going on between them?" The question hit like a punch to the gut, even though I had been harboring the same suspicion. Hearing it from someone else made it feel more real, more possible. "I have no proof," I said quietly. "Just a feeling, a really bad feeling." "Trust your instincts," Tiffany advised. "They are usually right. And regardless of whether anything inappropriate is happening, it sounds like Alexis has overstayed her welcome. You need to set a firm deadline for her to move out." She was right, of course. The temporary arrangement had already stretched from the original 2-month timeline to nearly 3 months, with no end in sight. That afternoon, I sat Alexis down for a calm, rational discussion about expectations and timeline. "I know things have been difficult for you," I began carefully, "but we agreed this would be a short-term situation. It has been almost 3 months now, and I have not seen much progress on finding a job or your own place." "You are kicking me out?" Alexis's eyes immediately filled with tears. "Where am I supposed to go? Back on the street?" "That is not what I said," I clarified. "I am just asking for a concrete plan and timeline. Derek and I need our space back." "Oh, I see." She sniffled dramatically. "Your precious space is more important than your own sister's well-being. Mom and Dad would be so proud." Before I could respond, she had pulled out her phone and was dialing our parents. To my dismay, she put the call on speaker, launching into a tearful account of how I was threatening to make her homeless. By the time our mother answered, Alexis had worked herself into such a state that her words were barely comprehensible between sobs. "Margaret, what is going on?" my mother demanded. "Why are you upsetting your sister like this?" I tried to explain the situation calmly, but Alexis's dramatic background crying made it impossible to sound reasonable. By the end of the call, I had received a lecture about family duty and the importance of supporting each other through hard times. The conversation ended with my father's stern reminder that family comes first, always. Once again, I found myself backing down to keep the peace, agreeing that Alexis could stay a little longer while she continued her job search. The triumphant gleam in her eyes, as she hung up the phone, told me she knew exactly what she was doing. The suspicious communications between Derek and Alexis became harder to ignore. One evening, I glimpsed a text notification on Derek's phone as it lit up on the counter. "Last night was fun," from Alexis, complete with a winking emoji. When I asked him about it, his explanation came too quickly, too rehearsed. "Oh, we were just watching that comedy special while you were working late. Remember I told you about it?" He had not told me about watching anything with Alexis, but I let it go. unwilling to appear paranoid. A few days later, I came home early from work with a migraine to find Alexis using my laptop. She closed it hastily when I entered the room, looking startled. "I was just checking my email," she explained, though she had her own laptop. "Mine is updating." I nodded and went to lie down, too sick to argue. Later, when I checked my browser history, I found searches for how to tell if he will leave her for you and signs he loves you more than his girlfriend. The searches had been deleted from the history, but remained visible in the suggested results when I typed "how to" in the search bar. The tension came to a head during a family dinner at our house. Our parents had driven up for the weekend, ostensibly to visit both of us, but really to check on the situation after Alexis's dramatic phone call. Throughout the evening, my sister played the role of perfect daughter and hostess, helping serve the meal I had prepared and making a show of her domestic contributions. "Alexis made the most delicious breakfast this morning," Derek commented as we ate. "She is quite the chef." "I'm just trying to pull my weight around here," Alexis replied modestly. "Margaret works so hard. It is the least I can do." The subtle digs continued throughout the evening. "Margaret has been so generous letting me stay," Alexis would say, then add, "even though she has so many rules about how things should be done in her house." Our parents ate it up, praising me for helping my sister while simultaneously criticizing what they perceived as my rigid expectations. Derek was unusually attentive to Alexis, laughing at her jokes and agreeing with her opinions in a way that made my stomach twist with unease. After dinner, I went upstairs to get a sweater and found Alexis in my bedroom, standing by my jewelry box. Several pieces were laid out on the dresser, including my engagement ring, which I had removed earlier while cooking. "What are you doing in here?" I demanded. She startled quickly, putting down the diamond ring she had been examining. "Just borrowing some earrings for dinner," she said smoothly. "I forgot to pack any nice ones when I moved." "Those are not earrings," I pointed out coldly, gesturing to my engagement ring. "And you did not ask permission to be in my room or go through my things." "Do not be so dramatic," she scoffed. "I was just looking. It is not like I was going to steal anything." When I recounted the incident to Derek later that night, expecting his support, I was shocked by his response. "You are being too hard on her," he said with a frown. "She probably just admires your taste. It is not like anything was missing, right?" "That is not the point," I insisted. "It is about respecting boundaries and privacy." "Maybe you need to loosen up a little," he suggested, his tone condescending. "Not everything has to be so controlled all the time." I stared at him, unable to believe he was taking her side again. When had my reasonable expectation of privacy in my own bedroom become controlling behavior? The man defending Alexis seemed like a stranger, not the supportive partner I had agreed to marry. The final piece of evidence came a few days later when I returned from taking out the garbage. As I approached the back door, I heard Alexis on the phone in the kitchen, unaware of my presence. "I almost have him wrapped around my finger," she was saying to someone, her voice smug with satisfaction. "She suspects something, but he always takes my side now. No, she has no idea how far it has gone. Of course, I feel a little bad, but honestly, she has always had everything handed to her. That fancy job, this house, I am just taking what should have been mine all along." I froze outside the door, my blood running cold. The calculated nature of whatever was happening was worse than I had imagined. This was not a momentary indiscretion or harmless flirtation. This was deliberate, planned betrayal. Instead of confronting her immediately, I stepped back from the door and walked around to the front of the house, giving myself time to think. I needed more than overheard fragments of conversation. I needed concrete evidence of what was happening between Alexis and Derek. Only then could I confront them both with the full knowledge of their betrayal. I decided to plan a family dinner for the following weekend, inviting our parents as a buffer for what I hoped would be a frank discussion about Alexis's living situation. Perhaps with them present, we could finally establish a firm timeline for her departure without the dramatic tactics she typically employed when cornered. I spent the day cleaning the house and preparing a special meal, one of our mother's recipes that had been a family favorite since childhood. The table was set with my grandmother's china, candles lit to create a warm, inviting atmosphere. Despite the tension simmering beneath the surface, I wanted this to be a civilized conversation. Our parents arrived promptly at 6, bearing a bottle of wine and forced cheerfulness. Alexis had made herself scarce most of the day, emerging from the guest room shortly before their arrival, looking unusually polished. There was an air of nervous excitement about her that I could not quite place. Derek seemed on edge as well, checking his phone frequently and avoiding eye contact with me. When I asked if everything was all right, he mumbled something about a stressful project at work and changed the subject. Dinner began with stilted small talk about the weather, our parents' drive up, and various family acquaintances. I served the food, a roast with all the trimmings, and poured wine for everyone except Alexis, who requested water instead. This was unusual for my sister, who typically enjoyed a glass or two with meals, but I thought nothing of it at the time. As we finished the main course, Alexis suddenly clinked her water glass with her fork, calling for attention. Her cheeks were flushed, and there was a gleam in her eyes. I recognized from childhood the look she got right before revealing something she knew would upset me. "I have wonderful news to share with everyone," she announced, her voice trembling slightly with what I took to be excitement. "I am pregnant." There was a moment of stunned silence before our mother gasped and rushed to embrace her. Our father beamed with pride at the prospect of becoming a grandfather. I sat frozen, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth, a strange sense of dread building in my stomach. "That is amazing news, sweetheart," our mother gushed. "How far along are you? Have you had a sonogram yet? Oh, this is so exciting." Alexis soaked up the attention, answering questions about due dates and morning sickness with practiced responses. Throughout it all, I noticed Derek had gone completely pale, his knuckles white where he gripped his napkin under the table. Finally, our father asked the question, hanging in the air. "Well, this is wonderful news, but I have to ask, who is the father? Are you back with Tyler?" The room fell silent as Alexis turned to look directly at me, a calculated expression on her face. "Well, that is the complicated part," she said slowly, drawing out the moment. "It is Derek's baby." The silence that followed was absolute. I felt as though all the air had been sucked from the room, leaving me unable to breathe. My parents' expressions shifted from joy to confusion to horror in rapid succession. Derek looked like he might be sick. "What did you just say?" I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Derek is the father of my baby," Alexis repeated, her eyes never leaving my face, watching for my reaction like a scientist observing an experiment. "That is not possible," Derek stammered, finding his voice at last. It was just once. It was a mistake." His partial admission confirmed what my heart already knew. The betrayal was real, not a product of my paranoid imagination. I felt a strange calm descend over me, the kind that comes when shock protects you from feeling the full impact of pain. "You slept with my sister?" I asked quietly, looking at Derek. "In our home while we were engaged." His face crumpled. "Margaret, please, it is not what you think. It was one time. I was drunk. She—" "Do not blame this all on me," Alexis interjected, suddenly defensive. "You were a willing participant. Very willing, if I recall correctly." Our parents sat in stunned silence, looking back and forth between the three of us as though watching a car crash in slow motion. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded, the calm in my voice belying the storm raging inside me. "And I want the truth, all of it, right now." What followed was a chaotic exchange of accusations and explanations. According to Alexis, she and Derek had been connecting emotionally for weeks before anything physical happened. Derek insisted it was a one-time mistake during a night when I was away on a business trip. Alexis claimed they had been intimate multiple times. Derek swore it was only once. The details emerged like shards of glass, each one cutting deeper than the last. How Alexis had deliberately gotten Derek drunk the night I was away. How she had come to him for comfort after a supposedly upsetting phone call. How one thing had led to another. "I never meant for this to happen," Derek insisted, tears streaming down his face. "I love you, Margaret. It was a terrible mistake. We can work through this." "Work through this?" I repeated incredulously. "You slept with my sister. She is pregnant with your child. What exactly do you propose we work through?" Our mother finally found her voice. "Perhaps we all need to calm down and discuss this rationally," she suggested, though her own hands were shaking as she reached for her wineglass. "This is a complicated situation, but we are family. We can figure this out together." "There is nothing to figure out," I said flatly. "Derek and Alexis betrayed me in the worst possible way." "In my own home," I added. "Our home," Derek corrected automatically, then winced as he realized his mistake. "Is it?" I asked coldly. "Because my grandparents left this house to me, not us. My name is on the deed, not yours. So technically, you both betrayed me in my home." The realization that the house was legally mine seemed to hit Derek for the first time. We had always referred to it as our home since he moved in, but the actual ownership had never been transferred or legally shared. Unable to bear their presence any longer, I stood up from the table. "I need some air," I said simply, and walked out of the dining room, leaving the four of them staring after me. I locked myself in the guest bathroom, the only space in the house that felt neutral at that moment. As the initial shock began to wear off, the emotions hit me in waves: betrayal, rage, humiliation, grief. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, arms wrapped around myself as though holding the broken pieces together. Through the door, I could hear muffled voices continuing the conversation without me. My mother's concerned tones, my father's deeper rumble, Alexis's dramatic declarations, Derek's desperate explanations. They were discussing my life, my future, my home, as though I was a secondary character in their drama. I stayed in that bathroom for over an hour, processing what had happened and what it meant for my future. When I finally emerged, the dining room was empty, dishes still on the table where we had abandoned them. My parents had retreated to the living room with Alexis, while Derek was pacing in the kitchen, his phone in hand. "Margaret," he began when he saw me, his voice pleading, "we need to talk about this. It is not what you think." "Not now," I said wearily. "I cannot look at either of you right now. I am going to sleep in the guest room tonight. You can take the couch." "But," he started to protest. "The couch, Derek," I repeated firmly. "Or you can leave. Your choice." He nodded miserably, accepting this small consequence for his actions. As I gathered what I needed from our bedroom, I could hear him trying to explain himself to my parents in the living room, painting himself as the victim of circumstance and poor judgment rather than an active participant in betrayal. I locked the guest room door behind me and sank onto the bed, staring at the ceiling as I replayed every moment of the past few months with new understanding. The lingering touches, the private jokes, the growing emotional distance between Derek and me, it all made sense now. What I had attributed to the stress of a crowded house and busy work schedules had been the classic signs of infidelity happening right under my nose. Sleep eluded me that night as I cycled through anger, grief, and bitter clarity. By morning, I knew two things with absolute certainty. My relationship with Derek was over, and my sister had revealed her true character beyond any possibility of reconciliation. What I did not yet know was how to move forward from this devastating betrayal. The house was eerily quiet the next morning. I had called in sick to work, knowing there was no way I could focus on financial analyses when my personal life was imploding. Derek had already left for work, leaving a handwritten note on the guest room door that I crumpled without reading. My parents had gone to their hotel after the disastrous dinner, promising to return later to help sort things out. Alexis was presumably still asleep in what used to be my bedroom. I made coffee in the kitchen, moving mechanically through the familiar routine. The house that had always been my sanctuary now felt alien, contaminated by betrayal. Every corner seemed to hold a memory, now tainted. Derek and I planning renovations at the kitchen table, cooking meals together, building a life I thought was real. The sound of footsteps on the stairs broke my reverie. Alexis appeared in the doorway, already dressed and looking remarkably composed for someone who had just blown up multiple lives the night before. "Good, you are up," she said, as though we were about to have a normal conversation. "We need to talk about how we are going to handle this situation." "There is nothing to talk about," I replied flatly. "You and Derek betrayed me. End of story." She sighed, adopting a reasonable tone that made my skin crawl. "Look, Margaret, I know you are upset, and you have every right to be, but we need to be practical about the situation. There is a baby involved now." I said nothing, taking a sip of my coffee and waiting for whatever she had really come to say. "I have been thinking about what makes sense for everyone moving forward," she continued, sitting down across from me at the kitchen table. "Obviously, things cannot go back to the way they were before." "Obviously," I echoed, my voice devoid of emotion. "So, I think the most logical solution is for me to take the master bedroom," she said, watching my face carefully. "The baby will need the space, and it makes sense for Derek to be near his child. You could take the smaller bedroom, or maybe find your own place if that would be too uncomfortable." I stared at her, momentarily speechless at the audacity of her proposal. After sleeping with my fiancé, getting pregnant, and destroying my relationship, she was now suggesting I should give up my bedroom or leave my own house entirely. "The baby needs more space than you do," she pressed, interpreting my silence as consideration. And Derek should be able to be involved in his child's life from the beginning. It is what is best for the baby. What is best for the baby? I repeated slowly, the numbness I had been feeling since last night beginning to give way to cold fury. Exactly. Alexis nodded, apparently missing the dangerous edge in my voice. We need to be practical about the situation. I know it is not ideal, but we are adults, and sometimes we have to make difficult adjustments. As she continued outlining her vision of our future living arrangements, I observed her with a detachment that surprised me. This was my little sister, the girl I had shared a childhood with, the woman I had taken in when she needed help. Now she sat across from me, calmly explaining why I should vacate my own home to make room for her and the man she had stolen from me. I was thinking I could start moving my things into the master suite this weekend, Alexis continued, warming to her topic. That would give you time to decide whether you want to take the guest room or find somewhere else. I know this is a lot to process, but the sooner we establish the new normal, the better for everyone. The triumph in her eyes was poorly concealed, a flash of the same expression I had seen countless times in childhood when she had successfully taken something that belonged to me. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She answered and immediately put it on speaker. Mom, I am glad you called, she said sweetly. I am talking to Margaret right now about the living arrangements. How is it going, dear? Our mother's voice came through the speaker. Is she being reasonable? We are still discussing it, Alexis replied, with a pointed look at me. I was just explaining why it makes sense for her to let me have the master bedroom for the baby. Margaret, my mother's voice took on the lecturing tone I knew too well. I know this is a difficult situation, but you need to be understanding. There is going to be a baby involved, your niece or nephew. Family has to come first now. That is right, my father's voice joined in, indicating he was also listening. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the greater good of the family. Your sister is going to need support during this pregnancy and after the baby comes. Their automatic support of Alexis, even in this situation, was the final betrayal. Not once had they acknowledged the pain their younger daughter had deliberately caused me. Not once had they held her accountable for her actions. Instead, they were calling to pressure me into further sacrifice for her benefit. As they continued their united front of persuasion, the front door opened and Derek entered. He had apparently decided to come home during lunch, perhaps hoping to find me alone and more receptive to his explanations. What is going on? He asked, taking in the scene at the kitchen table. Family discussion about living arrangements, Alexis informed him brightly. I was just telling Margaret that it makes sense for me to take the master bedroom for the baby, and she can have the guest room, or find her own place. Instead of looking shocked at this outrageous suggestion, Derek nodded thoughtfully. That actually makes sense, he said slowly. The master has the ensuite bathroom and more space for a crib, and it would be good for me to be close by for night feedings and such. His immediate acceptance of Alexis's proposal made it clear they had already discussed this, probably before the pregnancy announcement. The betrayal was even more calculated than I had realized. Margaret, Derek continued, his tone gentle, as though speaking to a child. I know this is not what any of us planned, but we need to think about what is best for the baby now. This could be a workable solution, at least temporarily. As the three of them, plus my parents on the phone, continued to discuss my future as though I had no say in it, I sat in silence, a strange calm settling over me. They had shown their true colors, all of them. There was no more room for doubt or second-guessing. Alexis must have mistaken my silence for resignation because she grew bolder, reaching across the table to touch my engagement ring, which I had put back on out of habit that morning. You will not be needing this anymore, right? She asked with a smirk that revealed her true character more clearly than any words could have. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The hurt and confusion of the past 24 hours crystallized into absolute clarity. I remembered my grandmother's words from years ago. Never let anyone make you small in your own life, Margaret. Stand tall in who you are and what you deserve. I looked at Alexis's smug face, at Derek's placating expression, heard my parents' enabling voices through the phone, and knew exactly what I needed to do. I took a deep breath and stood up from the table, drawing myself to my full height. A strange calm had settled over me, replacing the shock and hurt with crystal clear resolve. Honey, I own this house, I said quietly, my voice steady and firm. Alexis's smirk faltered, confusion crossing her face. What? This house, I repeated, gesturing around us, belongs solely to me. Not to Derek, not to you. To me alone. Derek frowned. but we have been living here together for years. We are engaged. I have put money into the renovations. As a tenant, I clarified, you have never been on the deed. The house was left to me by my grandparents, and I bought out our parents' interest years ago. Legally, it is 100% mine. The confusion on Alexis's face was slowly being replaced by concern as the implications of my words sank in. Wait here, I said calmly, and walked to my home office. I returned moments later with a folder containing the deed and other legal documents related to the house. I placed them on the table and opened the folder to the relevant pages. This is the deed to the property, I explained, pointing to my name listed as the sole owner. And this is the mortgage documentation showing that I alone am financially responsible for this house. Derek has contributed to household expenses, but he has no legal claim to the property. But that is just a technicality, Alexis protested, her voice rising slightly. You and Derek are engaged. You are going to be married. We're going to be married, I corrected her. That is no longer happening, for obvious reasons. Derek reached for my hand. Margaret, please, we can work through this. It was a mistake, one terrible mistake. I pulled my hand away. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. Sleeping with my sister and getting her pregnant goes well beyond a mistake. I turned back to face both of them, my voice remaining calm and controlled. You both have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. The shocked silence that followed was deeply satisfying. Alexis's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice. You cannot do that, she sputtered. I am pregnant with your fiancé's baby. You would put your own niece or nephew on the street? Okay. I am not putting anyone on the street, I replied evenly. I am giving you 30 days' notice to find alternative housing, which is more than generous given the circumstances. What you do with that time is up to you. Margaret, my mother's voice came sharply through the phone speaker. You cannot be serious. She is your sister. She is carrying your fiancé's child. Yes, exactly, I agreed. My sister, who I took in when she needed help, slept with my fiancé in my home and is now carrying his child. Those are precisely the reasons why she cannot continue to live here. Derek's face had gone pale. Margaret, please let us talk about this rationally. Throwing us out will not solve anything. I am not throwing anyone out, I corrected him. I am giving you both legal notice to vacate the premises within 30 days, as is my right as the property owner. What you do after that is not my concern. Alexis's face contorted as she shifted tactics from smugness to panic. You are just doing this to punish me. What about the baby? Are you really so heartless that you would punish an innocent child for the mistakes of its parents? The baby will not be born for months, I pointed out reasonably. You have plenty of time to find suitable housing before then. And it is interesting that you suddenly care about the baby's well-being when you clearly did not care about my well-being while sleeping with my fiancé. This will destroy the family, she cried, tears starting to fall. Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this. Our parents raised us to believe actions have consequences, I replied, though in truth they had rarely applied that principle to Alexis. This is the consequence of your actions. Derek tried a different approach. Margaret, I know I made a terrible mistake. I was weak and stupid. Alexis was there. You were working late all the time, and I messed up, but I love you. I have always loved you. It was just physical with her. It did not mean anything. From the corner of my eye, I saw Alexis flinch at his words, but I was unmoved by his pitiful explanation. Whether it meant anything or not is irrelevant, I told him. You betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. There is no coming back from that. So you are just going to throw away 3 years together? He demanded, his tone shifting from pleading to accusatory. Just like that? I did not throw anything away, I corrected him. You did, the moment you decided to sleep with my sister. My phone began ringing. It was my father calling directly, presumably to add his voice to the pressure campaign. I declined the call and turned back to the situation at hand. I will be contacting a lawyer today to formalize the eviction notice, I informed them. You have 30 days from today to find new accommodations. I suggest you start looking immediately. Alexis's tears dried up remarkably quickly as she realized her manipulation tactics were not working. You will regret this, she threatened. When this baby is born and you have no relationship with your niece or nephew, you will regret being so cold and heartless. Perhaps, I acknowledged, but I would regret allowing myself to be manipulated and disrespected in my own home even more. This is not over, she hissed, pushing back from the table. I am calling Mom and Dad. They will make you see reason. She stormed out of the kitchen, already dialing our parents as she went. Derek remained seated, looking shell-shocked. I really do love you, he said quietly. I never meant for any of this to happen. And yet you made choices that ensured it would happen, I replied. Love without respect and loyalty is meaningless. Derek, please start packing your things. You can sleep on the couch until you find a new place, but I want your belongings out of my bedroom by the end of the day. As I walked away from the table, I heard my phone ringing again. My parents were not going to give up easily. I turned it off, needing space to process my next steps without their interference. Over the next few days, the pressure campaign was relentless. My parents called continuously, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to angry. She is pregnant with your fiancé's baby became their rallying cry, as though that fact should somehow override the betrayal rather than compound it. I contacted my family's lawyer, Mr. Bennett, who had handled my grandparents' estate. He helped me formalize the eviction notice and advised me on my legal rights and responsibilities in the situation. Though sympathetic to my circumstances, he was professionally practical about the process. You are well within your rights to ask them to leave, he confirmed. The house is solely in your name, and neither of them have any legal claim to it. Just make sure to follow proper procedures so they cannot contest the eviction. With his help, I served both Derek and Alexis with official written notice to vacate within 30 days. The formal document seemed to drive home the reality of the situation in a way my verbal notice had not. I also returned Derek's engagement ring, placing it in a small box with a note that simply read, "This belongs to you now." The finality of that action brought both pain and relief. The future I had planned was gone, but so was the illusion of a relationship built on mutual respect and loyalty. Throughout this process, my support network proved invaluable. Tiffany arrived the day after the confrontation, armed with ice cream, wine, and fierce loyalty. She helped me secure my valuables and important documents, rightly suspecting that Alexis might not leave quietly or ethically. I never trusted her, Tiffany admitted as we sorted through my belongings. The way she looked at Derek sometimes, even at your engagement party, I should have said something. It is not your fault, I assured her. I saw the signs too, but I ignored them because I wanted to believe better of both of them. My colleagues at work were unexpectedly supportive as well. When I finally returned to the office and explained why I had been absent, my supervisor, Janet, immediately approved additional time off and rearranged my project deadlines to give me space to deal with the personal crisis. Take the time you need, she insisted. The work will still be here when you are ready. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place a week after the confrontation. I was packing up Derek's books from the living room shelves when I found Alexis's journal tucked between 2 volumes. Whether she had hidden it there intentionally or forgotten it, I will never know, but my curiosity got the better of me. The journal contained months of entries detailing her calculated plan to seduce Derek. V is always working late. It gives me plenty of time with D, one entry read. Another, he is starting to confide in me about their relationship problems. It is only a matter of time. The most damning entry was dated shortly after she moved in. Living here is perfect. I can finally take what should have been mine all along. V always gets everything handed to her. The perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect fiancé. Not for much longer, though. There were also text messages to friends bragging about her progress in seducing Derek and her plans to replace me in my own life. The level of calculation and malice was breathtaking, even knowing what I now knew about my sister. Armed with this evidence, I confronted both Derek and Alexis one final time. I laid the journal on the kitchen table between us, open to the most revealing entries. I found this, I said simply. I think it clarifies a few things about what has been happening here. Derek picked it up, his face growing paler as he read. I had no idea, he whispered. I mean, I knew we crossed a line, but I did not realize it was planned like this. You did not realize, I repeated skeptically. Or you did not want to realize, because from where I am standing, you were either complicit or so easily manipulated that it amounts to the same thing. Alexis did not even attempt to deny the contents of the journal. So what? She challenged, though her bravado seemed forced. It does not change anything. He still chose me. He still got me pregnant. You are right, I agreed, surprising them both. It does not change what happened. But it does confirm that I am making the right decision in cutting both of you out of my life. Neither of you deserves another minute of my time or energy. With that final confrontation, a strange sense of peace settled over me. The truth was out in the open. Ugly as it was, there was nothing left to question or doubt. No more mental gymnastics trying to give either of them the benefit of the doubt. The path forward was clear, and for the first time since the revelation, I felt certain I would be okay. The next 30 days were among the most challenging of my life. Having Derek and Alexis still in the house, albeit with Derek on the couch and Alexis in the guest room, created a tension that was almost unbearable. We established an uneasy system of avoiding each other whenever possible, communicating only when absolutely necessary, and even then, primarily through text messages. Derek found an apartment within 2 weeks and moved out with minimal drama, taking only what was clearly his. The relief I felt watching him drive away with his belongings was profound. Without his presence, the house immediately felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted from its very foundations. Alexis took the full 30 days, dragging her feet on finding a new place and making numerous attempts to change my mind. She enlisted our parents, mutual friends, and even a few distant relatives to call and plead her case. These flying monkeys, as Tiffany dubbed them, all sang the same tune. Family comes first. The baby needs stability. I was being unnecessarily cruel. I stood firm against the pressure, though it was not always easy. The whispers and gossip in our social circle were difficult to bear. Some people took sides immediately, either rallying around me or, surprisingly, defending Derek and Alexis as following their hearts. Others seemed more interested in the drama than the hurt real people were experiencing. When Alexis finally moved out, taking with her several small items that belonged to me, which I chose not to pursue, I performed a cleansing ritual with Tiffany. We opened all the windows to let fresh air circulate, burned sage in every room, and rearranged furniture to create new energy patterns in the space. It might have been symbolic, but it helped me reclaim my home as my sanctuary once again. The room that had been earmarked as a potential nursery in our future plans became my home office, a space dedicated to my professional growth and independence. The master bedroom, which had felt contaminated by betrayal, was transformed with new bedding, paint, and furniture arrangement. Physical changes helped facilitate emotional healing. Recognizing that I could not process such a profound betrayal alone, I sought professional help. My therapist, Dr. Kimberly Hayes, specialized in betrayal trauma and helped me understand that my feelings of shock, rage, and grief were all normal responses to the situation. Healing is not linear, she reminded me often. There will be good days and bad days. The goal is not to never feel pain about this again, but to integrate the experience into your life story in a way that does not define or diminish you. I kept a journal, tracking my emotional progress, noting triggers and setbacks, as well as moments of unexpected strength and joy. Over time, the bad days became less frequent and less intense. The journal became a tangible record of my healing journey, proof that I was moving forward, even when it did not feel like it. A support group for others who had experienced similar betrayals provided community and understanding that even my closest friends could not fully offer. There was comfort in sharing space with people who truly understood the unique pain of having trusted loved ones conspire to hurt you. Their stories of survival and eventual thriving gave me hope on my darkest days. One of the most difficult aspects of the aftermath was establishing new boundaries with my enabling parents. Our relationship had always been complicated by their tendency to favor Alexis, but their response to this situation forced me to reevaluate our dynamic entirely. I love you both, I told them during a difficult conversation 3 months after the revelation, but I cannot have you in my life if you continue to pressure me to forgive and forget something this significant. I need you to respect my decisions and my boundaries. My father bristled at what he perceived as an ultimatum. We are just trying to keep the family together, he insisted. Sometimes being the bigger person means letting go of hurt feelings for the greater good. These are not hurt feelings, I corrected him firmly. This is a fundamental breach of trust and respect. And being the bigger person does not mean allowing people to mistreat you without consequences. We agreed to a period of limited contact, giving all of us space to process the new reality. It was painful but necessary for my healing process. I could not continue to justify or explain my perfectly reasonable boundaries to people who refused to hear me. Over time, my parents began to see Alexis's patterns more clearly as she repeated similar behaviors with others in her life. The pregnancy that had been used as a battering ram against my boundaries became just another tool in her manipulation arsenal with them. with frequent threats about restricting access to their grandchild if her demands were not met. 6 months after the confrontation, my father called with a hesitant apology. "We did not handle the situation well," he admitted. "We were so focused on the baby that we did not properly acknowledge how deeply you had been hurt. I am sorry for that." It was not a perfect apology, but it was a start. We began rebuilding our relationship on more respectful terms, with clear boundaries that they gradually learned to honor. My mother took longer to come around, but eventually acknowledged that her instinct to protect Alexis had blinded her to the legitimate harm that had been done to me. Meanwhile, I channeled much of my energy into professional growth. The financial analysis project I had been working on during the crisis turned out to be a significant success, earning me recognition within the firm. 6 months after the betrayal, I was offered a promotion to senior analyst with a substantial raise and more responsibility. "You have shown remarkable focus and dedication, especially considering the personal challenges you have been navigating," Janet told me when she delivered the news. "That kind of resilience and professionalism is exactly what we look for in leadership positions." The financial independence that came with career advancement was empowering. I was able to complete several home renovation projects that Derek and I had planned together, reclaiming those dreams as my own. Each completed project felt like another step in making the house truly mine again. My home gradually became a gathering place for friends again, filling with laughter and authentic connections. Tiffany remained my rock throughout the process, but new friendships blossomed as well. I found myself surrounded by people who respected boundaries, valued honesty, and showed up consistently, a stark contrast to the betrayal I had experienced. Dating again was a challenge. I approached cautiously but optimistically. 6 months after the breakup, I agreed to a coffee date with Martin, an architect I met through a mutual friend. We took things slowly, with open communication about my trust issues and his patient understanding of my boundaries. Whether or not the relationship would develop into something serious remained to be seen, but the experience of connecting with someone new was healing in itself. The baby's birth, 8 months after the revelation, brought a complex mix of emotions. I learned about my niece's arrival through my mother, who sent a simple text with the news. The child was innocent in all this, and I felt a genuine hope for her well-being. But I also knew I could not be directly involved in her life without exposing myself to the toxic dynamics created by her parents. I sent a small gift through my mother, a children's book my grandmother had read to me, with a note simply wishing the child well. It was the extent of involvement I could manage while protecting my own well-being, a boundary I had learned to set without guilt. As the 1-year mark of the revelation approached, I took stock of how far I had come. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something more manageable, more integrated into my life experience without defining it. I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, and built a life that reflected my values rather than others' expectations. The unexpected positive outcomes of the crisis surprised me most. My friendships were deeper and more authentic than before, built on mutual respect rather than obligation or convenience. My understanding of myself and my values was clearer than it had ever been. I had learned to trust my instincts and set boundaries without apology, skills that serve me well in all areas of life. Most importantly, I had discovered that family is not just about blood relations. The chosen family I had built around me, friends who showed up consistently with love and respect, provided the support and connection I had always sought. Their presence in my life was a daily reminder that I was worthy of genuine love and loyalty. Looking toward the future, I felt a sense of openness and possibility that had been absent in the immediate aftermath of the betrayal. Whether that future included a new partner, career advancements, or other adventures remained to be seen, but I knew I would face whatever came with the strength and self-respect I had fought hard to reclaim. The most profound lesson from the experience was one my grandmother had tried to teach me years ago. True self-respect is non-negotiable. By standing firm in that principle, even when it was difficult, I had created a life of authenticity and peace that no betrayal could permanently shatter. As I look back on this journey now, I wonder how many of you have faced similar betrayals or had to make difficult choices to protect your well-being. What boundaries have you had to set in your own life, and how did it change your relationships? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to hear more real-life lessons. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message about standing firm in their self-worth, please share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from those who do not value you.